Welcome to the We Shape podcast.
Hello.
We're down a person today, but I think we're gonna really enjoy the episode regardless. Tyler's out of town. We've got Nina here.
Hello.
We have a very special guest. Kelvin Nivens is here with us. I'm going to jump right in.
Yep.
We had about 20 minutes of footage and banter prior to this, and the crew's just been looking at us like, are you guys going to start? I'm like, we're ready to go. So I'm going to jump right in. I've actually known Kelvin. Kelvin is my trainer. I've worked out with him. Well, I've known him for 20 years in the fitness industry. I've worked out with you in many cycles throughout those 20 years, in group classes, personal training. And you've been a personal trainer and had your own gym and been in this space for almost 3 decades. And I just was like working out with you one day and I was like, we have such in-depth discussion about the toxic cycles of the fitness industry. And finally, after talking about you with this for like 2 years, I was like, maybe you should come on the podcast so we can talk about it a little bit more. So so welcome. We're excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
I almost felt like I didn't even know where I wanted to go today because I feel like we literally talk about some element of the toxic fitness industry multiple times a week. So let me I don't know, where do you want to start? Where do you think we should open this with?
One thing I thought was really interesting when we kind of spoke on the phone prior to this was the like fitness industry is kind of just ignoring women altogether. You were talking about how like when you were looking at training women, because you have said that over your long career that you have mostly worked with women, although you've like done athletes and all different kinds of people, but that like when you took them to the gym, for instance, like the machines aren't even like built for a woman's body to use, or like that they were really not that considered by the fitness industry. And like that I thought was a really interesting topic you brought up.
Yeah, as Katie mentioned, I've been in the fitness industry for several decades, and so it's interesting to note some of the trends that I've seen in the industry. When I started training aerobics classes and jazzercise was thought of, and I think with in the general public's eye, as more of like what women did when they went to the gym. And for guys, it was kind of like the bodybuilding. I played football in high school. I still like to lift weights and throw weights around. So a lot of training programs and training protocols weren't really written specifically with women in mind. It was like, well, you can do this version of what the guys do when they go to the gym. And you could see that not only in what some of the programming for workouts and what the workouts were, but you could also see it even in the design of some of the gym equipment. I was telling Nina that I would be taking people through an orientation to the gym and showing them equipment, and a lot of times the machines didn't fit their bodies. And I was curious as to why it was such a misfit. And through my investigation, I learned that a lot of the test engineers for the equipment were males. So if you're using a male to test the product, it's going to be suited for a male body. And so down even to the design of the machines, there wasn't a lot of thought about women being in the gym space. They just use the treadmill, or they're just going to do their step class.
Do you think that the idea behind women in more cardiovascular style of training is predicated on like calorie burn and weight loss? I mean, do you think where that's like coming from?
I think so. Being in the industry for as long as I have, it's almost like being on a sailboat. And initially, when you're just on the deck, you can see some of your surroundings. But if you go a little bit higher on the rig, you get to see more. And eventually, if you go up to the crow's nest, you can see so much around you. You haven't left the boat, but you've kind of through the years grown, and through that growth changed your scenery, or not necessarily changed your scenery, but just being able to change your perspective and what you can see and what you can view. And so I feel like the longer I've been in the industry, the more I've been able to see some of that. And from my observation, I think that when I started training, what we looked at in terms of fitness and fit people were bodybuilders. Those were the people that we thought of as gym people. Athletes and professional athletes work out, and people that are real muscly. And if you went to the gym, you had to do some sort of a version of that. A lot of women thought, well, why do I want to look like a bodybuilder? So why would I ever go to the gym? That's what you do when you go to the gym. I don't want to look like that. And so I think that a lot of the perception was, if I go to the gym and I do work out, I'm going to end up looking like...
The fear of bulkiness, right? I think women are still today so afraid. If I work out at all, or I do anything besides cardio or, you know, spin classes or whatever, which I enjoy all those things, then I'll like look mannish, or I won't look how I want to look, and therefore I should only do cardio. And it's really hard to get bulky.
Which is such a disservice, because strength training, especially for women,
it's super good for bone density.
Super important.
It's essential, and for everybody, but particularly for a lot of the issues that some of my clients were starting to suffer could have been offset or alleviated or assuaged with some basic resistance training. But getting people to buy into that was difficult, because that's not what the industry chose to show and promote. At that time, if you wanted to look at a fitness magazine, you had a couple of choices. Maybe a Muscle and Fitness or a Muscle and Fitness Hers. And what people saw being put forth as the models of fitness and health were body types that I think a lot of people are like, well, if that's what I have to look like to be fit and healthy, I'm never going to look like that, or I don't want to look like that. And so they chose to stay away from it.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we tend to be drawn toward the aesthetic. And so we're looking externally to see what looks like it's the epitome of fitness or health. So if you have fitness companies or magazines showing you images of people that, you know, are bodybuilders and have that type of aesthetic.
And that type of time. Like, if you think about what it takes to actually, like, that's the thing I think is such an interesting thing we're talking about, is that myth and misconception around fitness. Because I know for me, like, I've looked at the cover of a magazine and been like, well, I maybe don't want to look like that or whatever, but it would be very difficult for me to eat properly, work out properly, etc., in order to achieve that aesthetic. But like, I think there's a lot of women in the world, or men as well, who are like, well, if I work out this way, whatever, I'm going to get those results. Like, oh no. And I'm like, no, it's really hard. Like, you'd have to be dedicating so much time to your protein intake, like, many factors are a part of that. And there's not a risk to just generally go to the gym for wellness and end up
well, that's what I was just going to ask you. So it's funny, because when Kelvin and I at one point were at the same fitness facility, and one of the things that I did appreciate about the owners of that club was that they were actually like the alternative to like the big impersonal kind of, you know, more aesthetic. It was like they wanted to provide a place for people to like feel comfortable regardless of how they looked or what their goals were. And it's so fascinating, because even with that intention, I'm curious, when you were there for a number of years, what percentage of your clients that would come to you would say, I'm here to feel better, versus I need to lose weight? Actually, one of the first times I ever worked out with you, remember that pair of jeans I really wanted to fit into? And I'd run around the corner and I'd be like, I'm going to fit in the jeans. And I'm like, you idiot. Like, I look back and I'm like, jeans. That's what I spent my time on? That is what I spent my time on. It's wild. But it's like, even in that environment that was really welcoming that mentality, was still never the case. I mean, what percentage of your clients would come to you and say, I'm just here for wellness, I just want to connect with my body and move my body, versus I'd like to lose weight, or I want to fit in.
Say zero.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 0.
Okay. Wow.
You know, it's one of those things when I think you work in fitness, you're aware of some of the myths that are out there, and you're aware of some of the misinformation that people might be victimized by. So I would always hope that through training with me, I could help people develop a better sense of what they were actually doing. Because what I found was that a lot of times we don't know the reasons why we seek help. And so people came to me saying, I want to fit in these jeans, or I want to lose like 0.5 inches here, 3.5 there, just a spot here, and take just a little bit off there. And it's like, wow, I wish that bodies work like that. And I wish that it was that simple. So you try and educate people as to how the body really adapts, and hopefully through that education they start to develop a sense of appreciation of wellness and overall wellness, and getting in there. And it's kind of why I like WeShape. There's not a lot of people, or I should say it's hard in the industry to find people who are actually caring about the whole person, and who are caring about the most integral parts of what I think health and wellness are. And I don't think that it is six-pack abs a lot of times, but I think that with the fitness industry in general, that's kind of what we push, and what's pushed out there, and what people see. And whenever you have a chance to work with someone one-on-one and properly educate them, or to dispel a myth or bust a myth, it's a great thing. So I was talking to Nina about this, and why I was so excited and jazzed about WeShape is that when you find like-minded people, and I told her it's like finding another kid that likes black jelly beans. Oh, you're like, one of me.
I do. Yeah. I totally love it.
You totally would.
I love black licorice. Send it to us.
And you're like, yeah. It's finding somebody else that is trying to reach the athlete in a different way than what is typically being put out there is a game changer. And I feel like the more that there are people that are thinking about the whole person, the more we can start to fight what's going on with what I see is a very toxic culture.
Well, I mean, it's like I told you, the beginning stages of this company, which we still are in, I've had to really step back and not be discouraged by outside feedback that are not my people, right? It's fine that they're not my people, but like I've had people tell me like, your business will never make it because you have to market to people with weight loss goals or this or that. Like people don't care about just taking care of themselves. And I'm like, oh no, you know? And so I remember when I told you that this has been quite a struggle, but I also noticed this other thing. Did I talk about this last? I never can remember. Speaking of someone who has a bad memory versus a good memory.
That's why we're a great pair.
Is I would do this thing where I would go to people and they'd be like, what does your company do? And for the first couple of months, I would talk about the technology. And unless I was speaking to an engineer, they were like, cool, I guess, right? And then I was like, I'm going to try something else. And then I would talk to specifically women. And I would say, oh, we're giving people permission to ditch their scale and just like learn how to connect with their body and ditch all of societal expectations of how they should look. And they'd be like, what's your website? Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's like people are waiting for permission. And one of our marketing director had messaged me, and she was wanting me to write a couple emails for the newcomers to the community. And she said, can you tell me a story about your beliefs in one of the emails, like how you broke down some of your beliefs? And I was like, I didn't even know I had the beliefs. I was just like, yeah, I want to try to fit in those pants. Like it's not like we're walking around consciously going, I have this belief and I'm doing this. It's like, it doesn't come until you pause and someone provokes a curiosity, right? And sometimes people aren't ready for that curiosity. Some people will find WeShape and be like, what the hell is this? I don't want this. I want to go to this other company that's going to promise me weight loss. And they're not ready for that. But for the people who are, there are a lot of people, in my opinion, who are waiting for permission to ditch all of those things because it's all consuming. If I have to think about every calorie I put in my body, the amount of exercise I'm going to have to burn that off, am I going to fit in this dress? Like somebody told me earlier this year, do you do this where when you go out of town, it's like, I'm going to set a new goal for my body because I have to look a certain way on that trip.
Oh, I think that's natural probably for a lot of people.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, you don't have to do that. Like no one is forcing you to do that. It's just a subconscious, like human beings are just like one habit after another that was programmed into them. And at any point we can give ourselves permission to say, wait a minute, does this really work for me? Has this really served me to give this much energy and attention to the number on my scale, to the size of my pants, or like, should I just move my body to connect with my body and feel good? Like,
I have a very similar experience in like just shifting the perspective or shifting the permission. I like that word you use, permission, because like I, for a long time as a younger person, I was an athlete in high school, et cetera. And then I, fell off because you're not in high school anymore. You have a job, whatever, and you're busier. And like my body changed. I was getting older. I was eating differently, whatever. And so I became like an exercise hater. And that became like my personality. Like, no, exercise is super lame. And like you guys with your cardio bunny stuff, like losers, and that was like a part of my personality. Like I have friends who love fitness, like in a scary way. Like they really love it. They're like, let's run a 10K for fun. I'm like, I'm good. Like, thank you so much. I love the invitation. Like I'll meet you for the pancakes. But like, I also realized something in the last probably 5 years of really working with WeShape and getting to know myself and my relationship with my body. Like exercise, I had this strong connotation with exercise is punishment. It is uncomfortable. It is painful. I do not enjoy it. I'm not going to identify myself that way. So I separated myself from exercise in that way. And I realized you can actually do all kinds of stuff. Like it can feel good. You can do yoga, like whatever you like. You can hate yoga too. Like you can whatever. But my point being though is like I can hop on my spin bike, for instance, and do 20 minutes super slow. And like it still is helping me have a better relationship with my body, have better overall wellness, like possibly longevity, etc. And it's not like it's something I have to pull teeth to do. And I didn't know that I didn't have to go like ham every time I worked out. Like I thought that working out had to be like no pain, no gain. And I think that's another misconception that like you just don't have to, it doesn't have to feel like suffering. It can be enjoyable.
Well, when I was uncovering some of my beliefs around body image, I mean, I'm still unraveling, right? The thread has been pulled, but it's like, oh, there's a lot of fabric to unravel there. But I think that I instantly kind of went to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, fine, we're not going to exercise ever again. This is ridiculous. And then I was like, whoa, we got to stop. Movement is critical. Human beings need to move their body. It's connected to all sort of emotional, cognitive,
neuroplasticity.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind the importance of movement. So then I kind of had to say, okay, pause. Like, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to actually redefine what it means to connect with your body and move, and the intention behind why we're doing it, right? So if I'm doing it to fit into those pants that I wanted to wear or to have the number on the scale change, that's not really a super healthy connection with movement in my body. So I mean, again, it has been a struggle because I'm like, oh no, I don't know if people want this, but I also don't really maybe care. I'm kind of like,
we do. So
I'm sorry. Like whoever wants this will find us and we'll find them and we'll be a great synergy of connection. But I think we're a little bit already. A lot of people are ready to kind of move into a different direction with how we connect with our body and let it be so much less about the aesthetic and the number and the pant size. But I mean, even when I started working out with you, I remember thinking, wow, this doesn't feel as hard as I thought it was going to be. Because like Nina, I came from the camp of like, unless you feel like you're going to throw, it's like we praise people who like work out till vomiting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
you
not
really
healthy.
Pushed it.
Yeah. And so like even from like maybe you could, Kelvin, just spend a moment, tell us about like maybe your top two. You probably have a bunch of pet peeves like being in the industry for so long, but like what would you say are the top misconceptions that people have? Like, for instance, like the length of time you're working out, the output that you're giving in that workout. Like, what are some of the misconceptions that we can just say, okay, look, this is what we thought we believed. Let's actually speak a little bit of truth and light into this topic. Is there anything anything specific that you can?
Well, following up on what you both said, from the negativity of investors saying that your philosophy is not going to work, I don't like that statement. And I don't like it because I think it infers that because the industry is not catering to that it doesn't exist. I think the industry is catering to something else, and that is what is mostly presented to people. So I think that the people that want to connect with a WeShape haven't been able to find a lighthouse, somebody that they can get that permission from. And I think that the more there are companies like WeShape giving permission for things like that, you'll start to see those people come out of the woodworks. And it won't be like, oh, like, where are these people? They've always been there. Like you said, they've just been kind of looking and waiting for something. Exercise as punishment is one of the biggest misconceptions and one of the biggest things that I try and dispel from people. I think it's one of the things that people like that end up working with me, is that actually working out can be pretty enjoyable, and it can be a good way to spend some time. And if you can move away from the exercise as punishment to exercise as nourishing my body, I think that it kind of shifts the perspective. We grow up where if you get in trouble, you have to run laps, or
that's true.
We're presented with calisthenics for like punishment. Go do so many of those. So I think it's a lot of times easy to make that association with, exercise as punishment, particularly when you have a lot of fitness pundits pushing the no pain, no gain. If there's not a vomit bucket in your gym, you're not hardcore, and there's a lot of stimulus junkies out there that I think feel that the more that they exert themselves and the harder that they punish themselves in workouts, the better results they're going to get. And I think for a lot of people looking from the outside, they look at that and go, that makes absolutely no sense to me, and I want no part of that. So learning that it doesn't have to be 2 hours at the gym. I don't have to throw up to get a good workout. There are all sorts of type of movements that I can do and find something that really works for my body and my personality, whether it be yoga, whether it be a bike ride. We've talked about this. It's in the fitness industry. It's like always 60-minute session, 60 minutes. It's like, oh, does it really need to be 60 minutes?
I told you when I first started working out with you, I'm not going to be able to do the 60. And you're like,
unavailable.
You're like, oh, okay, that's fine. Why? I was like, because I don't want to. And I didn't have a better reason than that. I was like, I don't want to do 60 minutes. And I think that, like, just to say really quickly, I've said this on the podcast probably a number of times because I think about this many times a week. But Oprah always says this thing, right? Like, all human beings are just doing this thing. Do you see me? Do you love me? Am I worth it? And if I come to you because I want to lose weight and I want to fit in these pants, that's just a version of, do you see me? Do you love me? Am I worth it? If I come to you and I'm like, I'm super hardcore and I work out in this style and I do it 7 days a week and I do double days and I vomit, it's still the same thing.
Right.
Do you see me? Do you love me? Am I worth it? And what I want to do at WeShape is I'm like, we see you. We love you. You're worth it. You don't have to do anything for us to give you that validation. Your mere existence is enough. Now let me give you a tool to help you connect with yourself in a more meaningful way without all of those undertones. That's all this is.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with that more, and that's at the essence of what I want to accomplish when I work with someone. When I started working with Katie again, I sent her a parable. There's a story, and it's the parable of the stonecutter. And to not go into detail with the entire parable, it basically tells a story of a guy that makes his living by cutting stone. And it's really hard work, and it's pretty grueling, and it doesn't pay very well for how much labor he has to put in. And one day he sees this really rich man walking by and says, God, I wish that I was rich like that and that I didn't have to do this. And boom, his wish was granted, and he became this wealthy man. He became a wealthy man, and one day he saw a parade procession, and the king came by, and he's like, wow, everybody loves the king, and look how much power he has. I wish I could be a king, and he became the king. And he kept wanting to be more things. He's like a king, but then one day he's like, what's going on? There's something going on that I can't control, and it was like the wind. And he said, okay, well, what's more powerful than the wind? And he said, okay, I want to be a mountain. And he actually ended up becoming a mountain, which was stronger than wind, which was stronger than the sun. And he thought, I'm the most powerful thing, and I've attained it all. And one day he feels something chipping away at him. I was like, God, what is that? What is that chipping away at me? That kind of hurts. And he looks down, and it's a little stone cutter cutting away at the stone. And I like that story because a lot of people don't realize that everything that they're looking for when they come to me for training, they already have. So if people understand that they're already strong, that I see you, you are worth it, and you are someone, now we can work out, and everything is in its proper perspective, instead of thinking that what you do in the gym, how much you're doing in the gym, is going to give you those tools. You have them. So
it's so much is just in between your ears, right? Like, what's going on. And like, I used to use exercise as punishment too. If I ate something that I felt like guilty about, then I would be like, I have to do this because I need to burn these calories. And I feel like I'm going to probably have a lot of deconstructing of beliefs for the rest of my life. But I do feel really proud that I've been able to move into a space of more appreciation and gratitude. Like yesterday, I was feeling extra stressed, and I didn't meet my work deadlines by Friday, so I was like working over the weekend, and then Tyler went out of town, so I was by myself with the kid. I just was like, I'm feeling like, I was feeling kind of out of sorts, and I was like, okay, pause. Your body is giving you a message right now. Your brain, your body are giving you a message. So what are you going to do with that message? So I paused, and I was like, oh, I need to get outside and move my body. And it was like, I did that as a way to like shift my energy in my body, but I didn't do it as a way because I ate a couple cookies the night before, right? So I went on like a 3-mile hike, quote unquote. It's just a walk in the trail. But I left, and I was elated. I was like, oh my God, this is the best day I've had in weeks. Like, just
changes your brain.
It changed it. But like, that would have not been the outcome if I would have hopped on my stationary bike. I mean, I might have gotten a little bit of those endorphins, but the depth of the experience that I had yesterday would not have happened on a stationary bike because I ate 2 cookies the night before. It was like just the mere psychological shift of intention that like, I want to use this as a tool because I feel out of sorts right now and I need to get outside and I just need to move. Took my experience into I know what it feels like to get on a bike, and because I ate the cookies. And yes, I probably was in a better mood because my endorphins were flowing. But it was not even comparable to the depth of like, my intention is to show appreciation for my body, that I have this tool that I can use my body in this way to like get out of this kind of weird mood that I'm in. And I'm just like, that creates the sustainability of exercise. Because, we had surveyed, I think it was 62,000 people who didn't buy, this is in a previous fitness company that we had. And we asked them, like, why didn't you buy the fitness product? And they had they had 2 reasons, top 2 reasons. The first one was, I need a product that, like, is kind of like more like a personal trainer. I don't know exactly what to do. The beginning, intermediate, advanced, or whatever is not specific enough for me. And the second one was, I don't have motivation. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to if you're coming in to lose weight or to punish yourself. Who wants to do something again and again and again? Who wants to be punished again and again and again? It's like if you're using exercise as a form of punishment, what makes you think that that's ever sustainable?
Those are some of my, I'm sorry.
No,
Nina. Those are some of my toughest sessions, are where people are working with me because, say, oh, my wife bought me training sessions because she says I need to work out. And I have this guy that doesn't want to work out, is maybe feeling a little bit embarrassed and defensive because his wife, like, got him, this gift certificate. And he's like, okay, what are we going to do? And I'm supposed to, like, train this guy and make this be a good experience. And he doesn't want to be there. And that's really difficult. Or people that have unwarranted expectations about what they want out of their training. And they're coming expecting me to be you're my punisher. I ate this much, blah, 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 punish me, work me hard. And I don't want to play that role in someone's life. And so hearing that you organically on your own, without your trainer prompting you, thought, wow, it might be good to move my body from a space of this will make me feel better, more so than trying to, as I say, outwork a poor diet or eating decisions that you might make, but moving your body, that's a win. And that's hopefully what We Shape and people that are being a little bit more thoughtful, mindful, heartful with their training will do. What I found was that I owned and operated a gym for 12 years and shut down the gym in September of 2020 during COVID. And it was a pretty thriving community of people. It wasn't a big community, but it was a thriving community of people that worked out there. When people could no longer gather to work out in the way that they had been accustomed to, it was interesting to see what would happen if it was kind of left up to them to be more in charge of their fitness. And I wanted to see what kind of impact working out with me had, and how have I really influenced these people, that I hopefully every time they came and worked out with me, it was an investment and they learned something that they can take with them, so that during periods where you can't go to a gym or where you can't do your community fitness, you can pivot and continue to know how important the things that we do and that we accomplish when they were coming to my class, can they do that on their own? And I was really pleased to see that a lot of the people continued to nourish their bodies, as I say, with forms of fitness. And very few people just stopped and said, oh, your gym's not open anymore? Okay, I'm done with this whole working out thing. So it feels good to be able to make a positive impact in someone's lives by helping them ditch a scale, by helping them look at more of the integral reasons of why we work out and why we move our bodies, and kind of move away from that realm of workout as punishment or trying to fit and be this image that is not for me. And that's kind of what I've been seeing lately, is a lot of people that have been negatively influenced by some of what they see by some of the fitness influencers in Instagram and TikTok places. And I'll have people come to me going, this person, said that if I drink this in the morning, this at noon, and blah, 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 I can look like this. And it's an influencer that has a totally different body type, totally different body shape than this person. And I have an innocent person coming to me saying, hey, if I do this, will I look like this person? And so I still see some of that. And it's nice to see that there are vehicles in the industry now where we can kind of break down those myths and let people know that you don't have to try and look like something that you're not. You had mentioned things that I'd seen in the fitness industry, and when I, first started working out, it was like, not only do I not want to lift weights because I don't want to bulk up, but it's like a lean, skinny body is kind of what I wanted. It's like, I don't want to I'll work out and I'll do weights, but it's not going to make my butt big. And that's kind of like, 1999, 2000s. We move on, and what is looked at as like the desired body type starts to change. And we move away maybe from a Pamela Anderson type to more of a Kim Kardashian type. And then I started having people come to me going, if I do this, will this make my butt big?
Oh my God.
So it went from, I don't want a butt and don't make my butt big and I don't want to do anything that's going to make me have a big butt to, what can I do to get a J-Lo butt, or, what can I do to like make my butt big? And it's interesting to see that sort of shift in the industry. And that type of imagery being presented as desirable does so much damage to young people. I have daughters that I, as a trainer, would always try and instill the importance of fitness with them and working out and moving their body. So they knew from a young age that it was very important. My dad's a trainer and they were active. Not super athletic girls, but always knew the value of fitness. But as they started to get older and started to get into middle and junior school, it was shocking to me to hear at the young age that some of the girls start talking about their bodies in ways that grown women that I was working with would talk about, like, oh, I'm getting fat, or like, Dad, I don't like the way my abs look, or other people in their class. And it starts at a really young age, and that I need to look a certain type of way. I think when you talked about some of my biggest pet peeves, I think that would probably be a huge one.
Like bodies being trends.
Yeah.
And then also I think that we have to maybe talk a little bit about where those trends come from, and how there's a lot of unconsciousness around, how do I say it? There's just a lot of unconsciousness around okay, well now I want this kind of body type. It's I was going to shame that body type before, but now I want it. And it's I feel I don't know if I can say this, but I feel there's a thing that white women do where they kind of just don't have any reverence or respect for they commercialize people's cultures and bodies in a way that have felt really, I mean, I was a part of it, but when I look back, I'm oh, that was not appropriate to be looking at a body as a trend and then totally discounting. I don't know. I don't know if you kind of get what I'm saying. I think
I totally get what you're saying. And
it's not to shame white women, but it's
training a woman that's saying, is this going to make me have a big butt? It would always make me feel like, even if I put a pillow in your pants, your butt wouldn't be big. But what does that say about other people that are built different, or people that, have a different type of body shape? And then to see that shift is interesting. And I think that there's a lot of unconscious bias within the fitness industry that makes a lot of people feel like they're unheard, or it's not a space for them. because being somebody that has, big hips and, a nice butt, thick thighs, if the general image and body type is a Pamela Anderson, Jennifer Aniston type body, you might not feel like you have a desired body type.
Well, I mean, that's what it's doing. It's like the fitness industry is playing into these belief systems that continue to oppress other groups. Yeah. And it's like, again, I think that people get triggered when we say like, oh, white women are, I was like, oh no, I'm going to trigger people. But the trigger, if it's coming up for you, is actually an indication that there's something inside of you that needs to be addressed. Anytime you're triggered with anything, that's just the reality. Whether you want to face it or acknowledge it, it doesn't really matter. It's what's happening. And so I believe that when we talk about heavier topics like that, it's important. There's been a period of time where I felt ashamed to be a white woman because I'm like, the collective whole that I'm a part of has done so much damage, right? And then I have tried to move into a different space of like, well, I don't know what I don't know, and so I have to be curious, and it's actually going to take action from me in order to change some of these dynamics, right? And so I think when shame comes in or when triggers come in, I think it's okay to say I'm part of the problem and I want to know better and I want to do better, because if we aren't able to move past that initial like, no, that's not me, I can't believe you're putting me in that camp, and like defensive behavior, we'll never move in to doing better, right? So I've had to move into those spaces myself and like, no, you don't know. You have a ton of unconscious biases. You act from a space of privilege. You don't know what you don't know. And so it wasn't until I was able to say, I can acknowledge that now, that I was able to let more information come in so that I could better understand. When we go to that space and we get defensive, you're basically saying I'm not available for any other perspective or any other truth, right? So I appreciate you bringing us talking about this, because I think that human beings are sort of known to, especially I feel like the more privilege you have, the correlation of just like waking up and doing whatever you want and like not being forced to think about things in another way is pretty strong.
It is. And I think a lot of what you point to in terms of blind spots is just collective unconscious and not necessarily making a deliberate attempt to continue perpetuating cultural bias within the fitness industry, but not being aware or not looking at it from a deeper perspective, I think leaves room for that. But when you approach it from the heart of the matter, where we're looking at the person and looking at the individual from an internal aspect and caring about this whole person and meeting them from where they are, we can start to get away from fitness initially and primarily being from an aesthetic point of view. Because if it's all about the aesthetics, then we can kind of get into that. And sometimes it was cultural, sometimes it was just not being aware. I had all different types of shapes and body sizes in my class. And I would sometimes have humans exaggerate. And I think a lot of times we exaggerate without taking everything into consideration. So sometimes I would have women in my class that maybe weren't the weight that they used to be, or this ideal weight that they somehow think that they're supposed to be, would say, oh, I'm so fat. Oh God, I'm getting fat. Or like I ate like crap yesterday, I'm getting so fat. And in my class, I would actually have people that had come to me because they, for health reasons, needed to work out because of morbid obesity or
and they would say that in front of.
Yes, in the same classroom with somebody that actually their fitness is more along the lines of a weight issue. And that would make me really angry. First of all, because it's an exaggeration. If somebody actually has body dysmorphia, that's different, and that's something where I need to like maybe look more into like maybe there's something going on because this person actually really does think that they're fat. But more than that, it was just kind of people not really thinking. And
that's what I'm talking about, though. It's like we wake up and we do life day in and day out, and it's hard to stop and say, wait a minute, is the way I'm doing this serving me? Is this actually like, what's the deeper intention behind this? Is my methodology of even my relationship with exercise and fitness, is that coming from a healthy place? Is this perpetuating narratives for other people that aren't healthy, right? Because when you're like, oh, I'm fat, then you're like, so who said that's not okay? Do you know what I mean? It's like you say so much that you don't even know you say when you just are doing your day to day. And so I have really encouraged people to, like, just even in myself, like stop and say, what is your intention behind that? And does this harm anybody in the process? And then just sit with that, right? I think human beings have a tendency, including myself, to just be defensive right away because we don't want to do anything wrong. Shame is a very powerful emotion that really ruins a lot of shit for us. And I think being able to have open dialogues and curiosity and know that we're just imperfect and that it's okay that we are, but that it is our job to sort of have a little bit more consciousness around some of these topics and around how you need to be mindful about your perspective of your body type, the quote unquote ideal. But I mean, it's crazy. We're just living out of conditioning all the time. And I understand, and I've been there myself, but now is the time that if you're listening to this, you can stop and go, wow, what is my narrative? Does my belief system impact other people in a negative way? Does my privilege impact people in a way that I'm not aware of? Where can I better educate myself, right? Because that is the path that will bring change that has real value and real meaning. But sticking to defensive, oh, I'm not this or I'm not that, and that doesn't do anything. That actually just perpetuates the toxic cycles because we're all so afraid to look at them, right? So I appreciate you bringing that up because I feel like it's time to change the narrative. It's time to understand that body types are not trends, that body type exercise and working out is not a punishment, that everyone's journey with their body and their relationship to movement is theirs and is to be celebrated and acknowledged, and that one experience isn't more valuable over another. Like I've even tried to encourage, like, I feel bad saying this. I'm having a hard time today. But like even like when moms have a baby, I know people who will like go online and then like be like, oh, 6 weeks postpartum, and like they have some genetic thing that allows them to look like they didn't have a baby. And then it's like, oh no, like what about all the people who like, no, that's not that, please don't post that. Like, because I don't think we understand that some of these belief systems have actual harm on other people. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I really wish that person would have posted, oh, I'm 6 weeks postpartum. I just started walking this week. I really spent some time bonding with my baby and taking care of my body, and not like I'm back in the gym 10 days later. I'm like, oh, let's not praise that. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like it's important to talk about these things because I think that we make choices from unconscious places. And so if we can just like even pause and think about like, what are my unconscious beliefs that I'm not even aware of when it comes to my relationship with exercise and fitness? I think that's a good starting spot.
Absolutely. And I think there's something really sort of that we can offer each other, which would, I think I've experienced this with a friend and it was very helpful, but I have a girlfriend who's like kind of a fit chick. Like she's very much got that Instagram body and she is very genetically blessed. And I remember when I met her, I was like, girl, what is your workout regimen? Like, tell me all your secrets. I want to know what you eat. Like I was going to copy her life because that's kind of how we're brought up in this industry is like, well, if you do it and you look like that, then maybe that will work for me. Granted, I'm like 6 inches taller than her and like I have a totally different body type. Like anyway, and I asked her, I was like, what do you do? Like, tell me your secrets. And she's like, girl, it's genetics. like, this is how my body looks when I do these certain.
But I'm going to catch you right there, because you even said she's genetically gifted. Why aren't you genetically gifted?
I am genetically gifted. Absolutely.
But do you know what I mean?
Flawless and gorgeous.
She's genetically gifted in the way that the construct wants her to look.
Instagram, right? I appreciate that. But the Instagram, like, that's kind of like the style of body that is on trend right now. And she happens to have that body type, which is, again, trending right now. My body type has trended. Like, things trend. Like you said, it shouldn't be like that, but it so far has been. But I remember her being honest and saying, like, this is genetics. Like, I eat cookies every day. Whatever. Like, she just shared her real life with me. And like, if she had got me like hook, line, and sinker a couple years ago and said, oh, I eat only this and I do this and blah, 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 I would have been right there at the gym trying to do those things. And I really appreciated the honesty. And I think women, people, everybody could be a little bit more like, hey, I do this stuff, but like a lot of this is just how I'm built or just how I'm born or whatever. And like, stop kind of saying, if I sell you my flat tummy tea or if you run 10 miles a day, you're going to get this thing. Surgery, hugely a thing on social media all the time now. People are like, no, it's just natural. You're like, no, girl, it's not.
Yeah, and another reminder, I should have a weekly reminder here. You're allowed to unsubscribe to anybody who makes you feel like shit about yourself on social media. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to follow those people. You could just literally, that's like unsubscribe.
Well,
like,
in the news recently, there's the Liver King.
Oh my
gosh. Oh my God.
Last year.
Wait, you have to give context to this because I saw the headline, but what is this?
Maybe last year, I had at least 3 of my teenage athletes come to their workouts to me and go, dude, have you heard about the Liver King?
Mega viral.
Huh? Like, it's this dude on Instagram and he eats raw meat.
Oh my God.
And he eats like raw liver and he's jacked.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do steroids, and this guy's just jacked, and he eats this way, and like, it's the Liver King. And one of them was like, yeah, my dad follows him now, and my dad went out and bought some kettlebells, and it's blah, 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 and this guy pushes the carnivore diet. He's the owner of Ancestral Elements. It's a supplement company.
Is he?
Yes. So this guy has been on record, several podcasts, as saying, I've never done steroids. I don't do steroids. I look like this because I eat raw bull testicles and cow livers and stuff. And so
I'm going to have a mental breakdown.
It was found recently receipts and emails where this guy takes a ton of steroids.
I think it was $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
In steroids. And I heard that he has ab implants, but that's totally hearsay. I don't know if that's actually true.
So he had to basically, after days of public shame, come clean and say, yeah, I take steroids. I lied. I messed up.
So see, even the Liver King, do you see me?
Yeah.
Do you love me? Am I worth it?
He gets to apologize, and he'll probably go on to fame.
Supplements are still going to sell.
He's going to sell a book. He's going to do this. But all the teenage kids, if 3 of the kids that I work with came to me asking me about this guy, millions of kids saw this guy.
I saw people eating raw liver that I know, like, as part of their tonight for dinner, we're going to have raw liver on their Instagrams, eating it out of a cup. I'm like, okay, right on.
I mean, there are a lot of nutrients in organ meats,
good for you.
But like, it seems like the way that it's like,
don't be disingenuous.
Humans are so good
don't
at
be
taking something good.
If you're trying to get people to be healthy and, I look like this, but I don't do steroids. I do
Yeah.
Do you see me? Well, that's what I want to also tell people. When you're following people on social media, even if they have what you think is the perfect body, those people are doing that too. Those people, that's the reason why they posted that photo of them in the bikini. Because they want you to see them.
Pressure.
They're under the same, do you see me? Do you love me? Am I worth it? They're doing that too.
Yeah.
All of us are doing that. And they don't get a free pass because they have a body that you think that's the exact reason why they're using their body as a way to influence people.
And the more one person unsubscribes from it, right, and says, I don't want to participate in this particular cycle, bodies are not going to be trends.
There's no energy anymore.
I'm going to be current with what wellness feels like for me. It gives permission to other people. Like when you hold your lantern up high, like you said with the black jelly beans, like when you're like, hey, I like black jelly beans. Other people are like, oh, cool, me too. And the pressure comes off and people have that permission to say, I don't actually have to do it this way. I'm not going to do it that way. And there are other people who are doing the same thing as me.
Crazy. Well, I think we'll probably end it with that today. But I think that
if you like black jelly beans, email us.
podcast at WeShape.com.
I'm your friend.
But I think the point of this episode was that body types are not trends. Working out is not a punishment. And I think that most people, all of us as human beings, really just want to feel seen and worth it. And so if your intention is to connect with your body and move your body as a means of changing how you look, that's where that's coming from. And the good news is you don't have to do it that way anymore. You could actually unsubscribe from that belief system and unsubscribe from the people that you associate with that belief system on social media. And you can start your own path, your own journey of deconstructing those patterns and toxic messages that we get from our culture and from media. And it doesn't have to be that way. That is the beautiful thing about uncovering belief systems, is you can always change what you believe. It's okay to change what you believe. That is, this is the whole purpose of WeShape, is to bring people on and say, hey, Kelvin, like, tell us about what, some of the misconceptions, because it's okay to change your mind about something. In fact, it probably will serve you to do that. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll have to have Kelvin back. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. It was nice to be here.
It's fun.
All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Good job, everybody.
$11,000.